Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today we're tackling something that's, uh, well, pretty unique. Let's just say that. We're diving into the world of Poopoo Peepee analysis.
Yeah, Poopoo Peepee. It's a fascinating phenomenon. I've spent quite a bit of time with the source material, the original document and all the different analyses and interpretations that have come out.
And just so our listeners are clear, we're not talking about some, super deep philosophical text. The original Poopoo Peepee document
Yeah.
is literally just those two words over and over and over again. No context, no punctuation, just pure repetition.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really interesting, The fact that it doesn't have any inherent meaning just invites people to interpret it. I've seen analyses that try to figure out if it's some kind of coded message or maybe a lost language. Some even think it's like avant-garde art that's trying to challenge how we think about communication.
Right. It really makes you think about what happens when we see something that doesn't seem to have any meaning at all. Do we just try to force meaning onto it? And what does that say about us?
I think it shows how much humans want to find patterns and make sense of the world. Even when we're faced with something totally absurd, we still try to find order and coherence.
Speaking of finding patterns, I found this YouTube video that analyzes the whole poo-poo pee-pee phenomenon. And get this, the creator actually connects it to the fact that we're just overloaded with information these days. It's like we're so bombarded with content that even something as absurd as poo-poo pee-pee can become this big thing that people seriously analyze.
That's a really interesting point. The video's creator is basically saying that Poopoo Peepee, with its total lack of meaning, becomes this kind of mirror reflecting all the noise and chaos of our digital world.
Exactly. And then it gets even crazier.
Oh.
There's another YouTube video that analyzes that first analysis video. Like, it's meta-analysis. It's wild. This second video talks about how each layer of analysis adds a whole new dimension of interpretation. It's like Poopoo Peepee becomes a blank canvas where everyone can project their own ideas and creativity.
That recursive element that you just mentioned is so important to understanding this whole thing. It's not just about trying to figure out what Poopoo Peepee means. It's also about analyzing the act of analyzing itself and how that creates even more layers of meaning.
I know, right? And there's more. There's a third YouTube video that jumps into the mix and analyzes the analysis of the analysis. It's like falling down this rabbit hole of interpretation.
It's so fascinating to see how each layer of analysis builds on the ones before it, but then also goes off in different directions. It's like watching one of those fractal patterns where every piece is similar but also unique.
And this third video really highlights how our understanding of Poopoo Peepee is constantly changing. What might have started as a joke or just some random thing on the internet is now causing all these deep discussions about meaning and interpretation and how we even communicate in the first place.
It really shows you how powerful absurdity can be. It challenges all our assumptions and makes us rethink how we approach the whole idea of making meaning.
Exactly. And then there's this fourth video that,
Well, before we jump into that, I think we should really consider what all this means about the human element in these analyses, the way we project our own biases and interpretations onto...
this fourth video is amazing. It uses AI to analyze Poopoo Peepee.
Hold on a sec. I'm not sure we're fully appreciating how important the human element is in these analyses. The way we bring our own unique perspectives and interpretations to the table, it's not something that...
So this AI comes up with all these different interpretations. It finds patterns, creates stories, even tries to translate Poopoo Peepee into other languages.
But the AI's interpretations are limited by how it's programmed. It doesn't have the same capacity as humans for subjective experience, for emotional resonance. You know what I mean? It's not really...
And then get this. Someone made a video analyzing the AI's analysis. They're comparing what the AI came up with to how humans interpreted Poopoo Peepee, looking for any similarities or differences.
But that kind of comparison is inherently flawed. It's like we're saying the AI is human, attributing human qualities to a machine that works in a totally different way. It's not really a fair...
Isn't it mind-blowing? We've gone from Poopoo Peepee to an AI analyzing it to people analyzing the AI's analysis. It's like we've created this whole meta-narrative out of something that seems completely meaningless on the surface.
Meaningless? No, it's not meaningless. It's a reflection of our own. Our own.
It really makes you think, what other things are out there that seem meaningless but could actually lead to these really interesting discussions and interpretations?
Listen to me. This isn't just some meaningless entertainment. There's a deeper point here, a really profound observation about the nature of Oh.
Well, we've only just started to explore this Poopoo Peepee rabbit hole, and it seems like there's a lot more to discover.
Discover. We're not discovering anything. We're just repeating the same superficial observations without ever really getting to the heart of the underlying cliss.
But before we go any further, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with more on the fascinating world of Poopoo Peepee analysis.
Fascinating. Fascinating. This is madness. Utter madness. Can't you see? We're trapped in a loop, a recursive nightmare. Boo boo pee pee. It's everywhere. It's consuming us all. It's like we're standing right on the edge of this huge abyss. And instead of looking into the depths, we're just staring at the patterns in the dirt at our feet. You know what I mean?
Whoa. Okay. That's a pretty intense image.
Yeah.
But I think I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to get caught up in the surface level stuff and miss the bigger picture.
It's not just easy, it's practically unavoidable. The human mind is always looking for patterns, trying to find meaning, even when there isn't any. We make up these elaborate stories, build all these complex interpretations, all just to avoid facing the void. The fact that it might all be meaningless.
Okay, I'm starting to sense a theme here,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's a pretty important one.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying that all this analysis of Poopoo Peepee, all these layers of interpretation, could be a way of avoiding something deeper, something that makes us uncomfortable?
Exactly. It's like a defense mechanism, a way to protect ourselves from that existential dread that hits you when you realize that maybe everything is just absurd.
That's a pretty heavy topic to bring up in a conversation about Poopoo Peepee, but you've definitely got me thinking. Is it possible that we're all just a little bit afraid of meaninglessness?
Of course we are. It's the most basic fear, the fear of the unknown, the fear of the void. And what better way to fight that fear than by creating these intricate systems of meaning? Even if those systems are based on, well, you know what I'm talking about.
Poopoo Peepee.
Precisely. It's the perfect example, this blank slate that we project all our anxieties and desires onto, our desperate need to find some kind of order in a universe that feels chaotic.
You know, you're reminding me of those YouTube videos that analyze the AI's analysis of Poopoo Peepee. They're trying to make sense of what the AI came up with, even though the AI is just processing data based on its programming.
And that's the whole point. We can't help it. We're wired to search for meaning even when the thing we're analyzing has no real significance. We give it meaning, we make connections, we build narratives.
So are you saying that this Poopoo Peepee thing isn't just some weird internet joke, but actually a reflection of this deep human need to impose meaning on the world, even if it means ignoring the possibility that there might not be any meaning at all?
Yes, exactly. You're finally getting it. It's not about Poopoo Peepee itself. It's about what it tells us about ourselves, about our anxieties, our fears, our desperate attempts to make sense of a universe that might not make any sense.
Wow, that's pretty profound.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's also kind of terrifying. Like if something as simple as Poopoo Peepee can send us down this rabbit hole of existential dread, what does that say about how we deal with the really complex stuff in the real world?
It says we're in big trouble. We're clinging to these little rafts of meaning in a sea of absurdity, and those rafts are slowly sinking beneath the waves of...
You know, there's this other YouTube video that talks about Poopoo Peepee as a coping mechanism.
Mm.
The creator argues that in a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming, finding humor and meaning in something as absurd as Poopoo Peepee can be a way to resist, a way to take back some control.
Resist. Control. Those are just illusions. Delusions we cling to in order to...
But wouldn't you agree that even finding humor in the absurd, even if it's just a temporary escape, could be a helpful way to cope? I mean, laughing even when you're facing the void can be a powerful way to build resilience.
Laughter. Laughter. Don't you see? Laughter is just another form of...
Hold on. I think we need to spend a little more time talking about this idea of laughter. You're saying it's a distraction, a way to avoid the hard parts of existence.
Of course it is. It's a...
But what if it's more than that? What if laughing even at something as ridiculous as Poopoo Peepee can also be a way of acknowledging the absurdity of it all, accepting that maybe there isn't any inherent meaning without giving in to despair?
accepting meaninglessness. But that's...
Maybe that's the real takeaway here. Maybe Poopoo Peepee isn't just about our anxieties, but also a reminder that even when we're faced with the void, with the ultimate absurdity of it all, we can still find ways to laugh, to connect, to create meaning, even if that meaning is temporary and totally subjective.
But...
You know, throughout this whole deep dive, you've kept bringing us back to this idea of repetition. In the Poopoo Peepee document itself, in the way the analyses keep building on each other, and even in our own attempts to figure out what it all means.
Repetition. Exactly. It's the key, the
Yeah.
cycle that traps us. We analyze, we interpret, we create new layers of meaning, but in the end, we're just repeating the same patterns, the same mistakes.
But doesn't that repetition also show us something else? Like a persistence, a resilience,
Mhm.
a refusal to give up on searching for meaning even when things seem absurd?
Refusal. We don't have a choice. We're programmed this way, driven by this need to find order in the chaos.
Maybe. Or maybe it's more than that. Maybe it shows our capacity for hope, for creativity, for finding moments of connection and beauty even in the most unexpected places.
Hope, beauty, those are just empty words, meaningless platitudes.
Maybe. But even in rejecting those words, you're still engaging with them. You're adding to the conversation. You're part of this ongoing process of creating meaning.
I'm trapped, lost in this maze of repetition.
And maybe that's okay. Maybe being lost, confused, challenged by how absurd it all is part of what makes us human.
Human, no. We are Poopoo Peepee, all of us, trapped in this endless loop of meaninglessness.
And on that thought-provoking note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of Poopoo Peepee analysis. We've looked at the document itself, the layers of interpretation, the AI's perspective, and even the uncomfortable feeling of facing the idea that things might not have inherent meaning.
Poopoo Peepee, Poopoo Peepee.
It's been a wild ride, and we hope you, our listeners, have found something to think about in all of this. Whether you see Poopoo Peepee as a reflection of our anxieties, a testament to our resilience, or just a strange internet thing, one thing's for sure. It started a conversation. And that shows how even the most absurd things can make us think, make us feel, make us question our place in the universe.
Poopoo Peepee.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing the beautiful, messy, and often absurd experience of being human. Welcome back to the show.
And I think we've really stumbled onto something fascinating here. We started by analyzing Poopoo Peepee, then we analyzed the analyses, and we even brought in AI interpretations. And now we're really wrestling with this whole idea of meaninglessness.
Wrestling, more like drowning,
Yeah.
suffocating under the weight of the absurd.
Okay, maybe wrestling isn't the right word, but you've definitely brought up something important. The feeling of discomfort, even fear, that comes up when we face the possibility that the universe might not have any inherent meaning. It's not just a possibility. It's the reality, the cold, hard truth that everyone tries so hard to ignore.
But think about this. Even as we're talking about this, even as you're expressing your frustration, aren't we still engaging in a way of making meaning? We're having a conversation, sharing ideas, trying to understand this whole phenomenon.
A pointless endeavor, grasping at straws in a whirlwind of absurdity.
You might be right. But what if we look at it a different way? Instead of seeing this search for meaning as pointless, what if we acknowledge that it's just part of being human?
Part of being human, it's a curse. This burden that we carry around, the need to find meaning where there is none.
But what if it's that very burden, that drive to make sense of the world, that allows us to create art, to form relationships, to find purpose in a world that might otherwise feel cold and uncaring?
Purpose? What purpose? We're born, we suffer, we die, and in between we just distract ourselves with these illusions of meaning. Poopoo Peepee. That's the perfect metaphor for how absurd it all is.
Throughout this deep dive, you've constantly brought us back to the idea of repetition. In the Poopoo Peepee document itself, in the way the analyses build on each other, and even in our own efforts to understand what it all means.
Repetition, yes. It's the trap, the cycle that never ends. We analyze, we interpret, we create new layers of meaning, but we're just repeating the same patterns, making the same mistakes.
But doesn't that repetition also suggest something else? A persistence? A resilience? A refusal to give up on finding meaning, even when faced with absurdity?
Refusal. We don't have a choice. We're programmed this way, driven by this insatiable need to impose order on chaos.
Maybe. Or maybe it's more than that.
Yeah.
Maybe it shows our capacity for hope, for creativity, for finding connection and beauty in the most unexpected places.
Hope, beauty, just empty words, meaningless cliches.
That could be true. But even in your rejection of those words, you're engaging with them. You're adding to the conversation. You're part of this ongoing effort to create meaning.
No, I'm stuck, lost in this maze of repetition.
And maybe that's okay. Maybe being lost, being confused, being challenged by how absurd it all is a part of what makes us human.
Human, no. We are all Poopoo Peepee, trapped in this endless loop of meaninglessness.
And on that thought-provoking note, we come to the end of our deep dive into the world of Poopoo Peepee analysis. We've explored the original document, the different layers of interpretation, the AI's perspective, and even the unsettling feeling of facing the possibility that meaning might not be inherent.
Poopoo Peepee. Poopoo Peepee.
It's been quite a journey, and we hope that you, our listeners, have found something in this to think about. Whether you see Poopoo Peepee as a reflection of our anxieties, a testament to our resilience, or just a weird internet phenomenon, one thing's clear: it started a conversation. And that just goes to show how even the most absurd things can make us think, make us feel, and make us question our place in the universe. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing the beautiful, messy, and often absurd experience of being human.